My favorite Smash trailer of all time is the Everyone Is Here trailer. No flashy cinematics, no brand new character reveals, just the unveiling of the entire legacy roster of Smash's history coming together for the ultimate battle. There were many concessions made in order to make this ludicrous roster a reality, namely the lack of newcomers at launch, the use of Smash 4 as a base for the game, and the retirement of trophies in favor of spirits. Overall, I'd say the effort was well worth it. That said, there is one major facet of Smash Ultimate that I've always felt was really oddly put together because of this everyone is here mentality, and that's the stage selection. Much like the character roster, Smash Ultimate opted to bring back as many legacy stages as possible while adding very few brand new stages. I think this was a bad idea. While Smash has always made some effort to preserve its legacy fighters through the games, the stages have had quite the opposite treatment. Often, the jump to a new Smash game meant old stage ideas got fully reworked or replaced with a similar idea. Because of this, when you put almost every past stage from Smash's history into one roster, there are way too many overlapping themes, gross overrepresentation of certain properties, and somehow still some baffling omissions. Not to mention that the sheer number of stages means the stage selection screen looks like a mosaic. I like to play with the stage choice set to turn so that everyone playing gets a chance to pick a stage, and I have had so many instances where someone is looking for a specific stage and they just cannot find it. This is like a whole side tangent that applies to the character select as well, but while it's cute that they're organized by their Smash appearances, it is so impractical for anyone who isn't intimately familiar with Smash history. Why they aren't organized by franchise the way every other Smash game did it is beyond me. But why am I telling you all of this? Well, because I want to fix it. Or at least, imagine a version of Smash Ultimate where my specific arbitrary desires for a stage selection are met. We're going to go franchise by franchise, point out all the oddities and frustrations with their current stages, and adjust their stage selection to hopefully make it far better. However, in order to properly contextualize a lot of my decisions in this project, I do want to first go over how exactly we got to this point. Smash Ultimate's bizarre list of stages did not come from a vacuum. It was informed by 2 decades of Smash history. With each entry in the series, there were some clearly defined patterns with how stages were handled. First and foremost, if a franchise had a fighter in any given Smash entry, they were almost always guaranteed a brand new stage to accompany that fighter. This doesn't just apply to newcomers, even returning veteran franchises were guaranteed a brand new stage when making the jump to the newest Smash game. By my count, there are only 4 real exceptions to this rule: Earthbound and F-Zero in the original Smash 64, Fire Emblem and Melee, and the Rob or Robot series in every Smash game Rob has been in. Technically, if you count Smash for 3DS and Wii U as 2 separate entries, there are more, but only psychopaths do that. Smash Ultimate was a massive departure from this pattern, only introducing new stages for Super Mario, The Legend of Zelda, the newcomer Splatoon and Castlevania, and of course any franchise that got a DLC fighter. Since Ultimate chose to bring back a bunch of legacy stages instead of the usual Smash tradition of creating brand new stages for every fighter, the stage roster highly prioritizes series that have been around since the beginning, the original 10. This is further exacerbated by the fact that any franchise from Smash 64 got at least 2 stages added in Melee. A big reason why Melee did this was because it didn't add a lot of new series into the mix, but also a lot of Melee stages acted as very direct replacements for their N64 counterparts. Peach's Castle, Mushroom Kingdom, Congo Jungle, and Yoshi's Island all got new versions with the same name. Planet Zebes, Dreamland, and Sector Z were all obviously succeeded by stages with very similar concepts in Brinstar, Green Greens, and Corneria, respectively. That only leaves Hyrule Castle and Saffron City as stages that weren't directly iterated on, but we did get a big Zelda stage with castle architecture and a Pokémon stage in the sky, so maybe I'm being too generous. Point being, Ultimate bringing a lot of these N64 and Melee stages back means all of these upgraded replacement stages now exist alongside their original N64 counterparts with identical theming. These N64 stages are all unnecessary nostalgia-based filler content, and in my ideal Smash Ultimate, they are all wiped from existence. It was cute and all when Smash 4 offered them as DLC, but there's a reason they weren't in the base game of Smash 4 or in Brawl at all. These are not very well designed stages, and we should be glad we have their Melee counterparts to play on instead. The other big elephant in the room ballooning the stage count is Smash 4. While most series only got a new stage in one version or used the same new stage in both, Smash's biggest series managed a couple brand new stages on both the Wii U and 3DS. Stages never designed to exist alongside each other. Now here they are in Ultimate, doing exactly that, making the Smash 4 section of this roster enormous. Not to mention, once again, some needless overlaps in theming that we'll have to address. So here's my mentality going into the franchise by franchise breakdown. Cut what you can, as this stage list is way too big and needs to be simplified. Prioritize removing instances of overlapping themes, game representation, and stage names to get as diverse and interesting a stage list as possible. And while we're at it, maybe freshen up the list with some new ideas unique to Ultimate so that the stage selection can still feel exciting for this new game despite the reliance on old favorites. Alrighty, we're going to do this by starting at the series with the most stages currently in the game and working our way down from there. First up is Super Mario. This is like half the reason I wanted to make this video. Mario's got way too many stages in this game, and so many of them are derivative of each other. Mario has a grand total of 18 stages. That's double the amount of the next highest series, which has 9 stages. I get that it's Mario, Nintendo's golden child. He gets like a million stages every game, and thus bringing every stage back is going to inflate Mario's numbers a lot. But this is just kinda stupid. Smash 64 had 2 Mario stages, Melee had 4, Brawl had 6, and Smash 4 had 6 again, but DLC bumped that number to 8. That's still a lot, but at least it's a steady curve matching with the general consistent growth of the stage roster overall. Ultimate's number just skyrockets, and sure, it probably matches up with how disproportionately massive Ultimate stage roster is, but that's why we're here to fix it. I am cutting Mario's stage list in half. 18 is a completely ridiculous number, and the series can do just fine with only 9 of those. I want to keep the major stages representing each 3D entry in the series, since those are Mario's most significant, so Princess Peach's Castle, Delfino Plaza, Mario Galaxy, and New Donk City Hall all stay. Though, admittedly, I think New Donk City Hall is kind of boring as an Odyssey stage, and it should really either take place during the festival for some added liveliness, or should just be replaced by something more exciting like Fossil Falls. But I digress. We're obviously cutting the 2 N64 stages. Additionally, I'm cutting Rainbow Cruise. We've gotta be ruthless here, and we don't need 2 Mario 64 stages. Super Mario Maker very conveniently covers a lot of 2D Mario history with 1 stage entry, so I'm definitely keeping that one. With that in mind, I see no real reason to keep these other generic Mario stages like Mushroomy Kingdom, 3D Land, Golden Plains, and Mushroom Kingdom U, so those can all go. That leaves us mostly with spin-off material left, a lot of which I think deserves its spot on the stage roster, with some caveats. Luigi's Mansion and Paper Mario can stay pretty much unchanged, even though I wouldn't mind seeing more of the Paper Mario series represented in that stage, rather than mostly Sticker Star and 1000 Year Door thing. I don't think we need both Figure 8 Circuit and Mario Circuit, we'll be fine with just one Mario Kart track. That said, it shouldn't be either of these. It should be Rainbow Road from Smash for 3DS. That stage was a banger that represents what makes Mario Kart memorable far better than the stages in Ultimate do. I assume there was some issue getting the stage to work for 8-player Smash, which is why it's not an Ultimate, but it's way too valuable of an idea to leave behind, so I'd say rework it until you get the damn thing running properly. So that'll be our Mario Kart representative. That leaves us with one more stage to cut between our 2 remaining Retro 2D stages, Mario Bros. And Mushroom Kingdom 2. These stages are cute and all, but I'm not exactly in favor of keeping either of them. The original arcade Mario Bros. And the awkward reskin of Doki Doki Panic don't feel like important enough Mario games to get a representative in our new limited stage list. Plus, I said I wanted to inject some new concepts into our little experiment here. Through the course of my ruthless cutting, I've ended up removing any and all stages named after the Mushroom Kingdom. That feels wrong. There's been some version of a Mushroom Kingdom stage in every Smash game, we can't just not have it. The Mushroom Kingdom from Melee is actually the only other Mario stage to be cut for Ultimate, which is interesting. It's as if they knew that they had too many Mushroom Kingdoms on their hands. Now, we already have the direct retro-style 2D Mario stage in the form of Super Mario Maker. If we're going to establish a new Mushroom Kingdom stage, I want it to be a proper 3D reimagining of the location as seen in the 2D Mario games. Something akin to how Smash has consistently translated sprite-based Metroid and Earthbound locales into 3D. None of this retro throwback aesthetic, we have a stage for that, and ideally not adhering to the style of the new Super Mario Bros. Games the way Mushroom Kingdom U did. If anything, take the transforming concept of that stage, starting at a grassy area and moving through a distinct biome or two before reaching Bowser's Castle, and really bring it to life in the Smash Ultimate style. That's my pitch for a brand new Mushroom Kingdom stage for Ultimate. Something free from the confines of a specific game to represent, and more of a general concept that could act as the definitive version of the Mushroom Kingdom for Smash going forward. So my final stage list for Mario would be this new Mushroom Kingdom, Princess Peach's Castle, Luigi's Mansion, Delfino Plaza, Rainbow Road, Paper Mario, Mario Galaxy, Super Mario Maker, and a revamped New Donk City Hall or Fossil Falls. Take your pick. 9 distinct locales all representing different major facets of the Mario series. With the most brutal section of the video done, let's move on to something much simpler. The next franchise on the list is The Legend of Zelda with 9 stages, one of the only members of the original 10 to not get any stage cuts going into Ultimate. Every Zelda stage that has ever been is here, which really puts into perspective how insanely overprioritized Mario is if it could double that stage count with 2 cuts. I actually quite like the Zelda stage selection in Ultimate. While it probably has a stage or two too many, they all represent distinct games and locales. You're not easily confusing any of these stages for each other the way you could the 4 different Mushroom Kingdoms. So my changes here are going to be much lighter. We'll cut our needless N64 stage as usual, and keep basically everything else. Much like Mario, I want to keep every major 3D entry represented. Gerudo Valley, Great Bay, Pirate Ship, Bridge of Eldin, Skyloft, and Great Plateau Tower do exactly that. While Temple specifically referencing Zelda 2 is a little odd, I have no real qualms with keeping it around as one of our very few 2D Zelda reps, and one of the most iconic Smash stages in general. However, I think we can do a little better than Spirit Train. Of all the 2D Zelda games to represent, the DS entries starring Toon Link are a strange choice in Ultimate's context since we already have Pirate Ship for the guy. I'd much rather a stage that properly represents 2 of the most iconic entries in the 2D Zelda lineage, A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds. Since these 2 games share the same map, they're an easy way to get double the game representation we'd otherwise get. As a bonus, this would give Zelda's design in Ultimate a more proper home. I think there are several ways to go about this. I wouldn't be against just calling the stage Hyrule and having it travel around different set pieces. You can pick one set piece, such as the Lost Woods, Lake Hylia, Kakariko Village, Death Mountain, or more specifically Turtle Rock, which I just think would be funny. But of course, since we abandoned the N64 version, this could be a fully realized adaptation of Hyrule Castle. Perhaps even complete with cameos from Aghanim, Yuga, or Ganon, transformations into the Dark World or Lorule, the appearance of the Triforce itself. While this is probably the simplest route, it keeps a Hyrule Castle in the game, which would be kind of nice. So that's how I'll represent the concept visually, but just know that this is a stand-in for any stage based on A Link to the Past / Between Worlds. And that pretty much covers Zelda. Perhaps it's a bit surprising that I'm not cutting more here since 8 stages is still a lot, but when they're pretty much all distinct bangers, I have no reason to get rid of them. Mario was by far the guiltiest party in bloating this stage count, everything else will be much tamer. By the end of this video, we'll see how many total stages I ended up cutting, and hopefully it will be enough to accomplish my goal of making this stage selection screen less of a nightmare to navigate. Now, before we move down to the next franchise, we need to address the other category, the 9 stages that don't have any fighter directly associated with them. I really like the idea of representing lesser-known Nintendo franchises with stages if they couldn't be fully realized as fighters, but the execution here is lacking to say the least. Let's start with what I like. PictoChat 2, Living Room, Find Me, and Woohoo Island are definitely staying. Maybe 4 stages is a bit much for all of these casual-oriented properties, but I think they're all iconic and distinct enough to warrant their inclusions. That said, PictoChat 2 should definitely be revamped into PictoChat X, incorporating effects from both iterations of the stage much like Flat Zone X. I guess while we're referencing the cut PictoChat 1, I should say the other missing stage of Miiverse should definitely stay dead. Now, the rest of these stages I can gladly cut. Tomodachi Life is definitely one too many stages for the Miis. Find Me and Woohoo Island have got us covered. Balloon Fight and Wrecking Crew are neat little retro throwbacks, but they kinda just make for bad stages in my eyes. Pilot Wings is cute, but we already have a dedicated Woohoo Island stage. We don't really need a version on a plane. And finally, Hannonbow. How you have survived this long is beyond me. While 5 cuts is a lot, I see an opportunity here to more properly represent some more niche properties. Since we are still trying to cut stuff here, I'll only use 2 of the 5 slots we just made for some new stages. Firstly, I think we're long overdue for a Rhythm Heaven stage. I imagine something similar to WarioWare Inc., where the stage is structured around some periodic rhythm minigames you have to complete for buffs. In that same vein, the stage can just be called Rhythm Heaven and it'd totally work. I think there are a lot of possibilities for filling in the other stage slots, such as Golden Sun, Dylan's Rolling Western, potentially even Shovel Knight if third-party stages are on the table. But I'd personally opt for something from Monster Hunter. I always found it weird that Rathalos got this dedicated boss arena that didn't turn out to also be some kind of Monster Hunter stage. The other bosses clearly use actual stages as the basis for their arenas, so it's weird to not have one for Rathalos. So perhaps a little boring, but I'd like some kind of Monster Hunter stage to go with Rathalos. Any Monster Hunter fans in the comments can pitch some more specific ideas. I could also very easily be swayed here to instead include stages from a myriad of other Nintendo properties. There's a lot of potential in the other category being squandered. But for now, these 6 stages are what I'm rolling with. Alright, on to the next proper franchise. Coming in at 7 stages, it's Pokémon. Welcome to the other half of the reason I wanted to make this video. I hate the way Pokémon is represented in its stages. How is it that in a game with 7 Pokémon stages, 2 of them are Pokémon stadiums and another 2 of them are Pokémon leagues? How is it that, at a time when there were exactly 7 Pokémon regions to pull from, only 4 get represented with Kalos managing 2 stages? How is it that the highest grossing media franchise in the world did not get a brand new stage for Smash Ultimate? And where the hell is Pokefloats? That one's a joke. We have definitely grown past the need for Pokefloats, but all those other complaints still stand. We are totally overhauling this stage selection. If we have 7 stage slots, we are actually going to use them to get all 7 Pokemon regions in here. There are obviously 9 Pokemon regions now, but I'm trying to make these stage selections under the context of Smash Ultimate's initial release in 2018, so no Galar or Paldea. But if you must know, I think Hammerlock and Area Zero would make for the coolest stages from there. Let's start with the obvious. No more Pokemon stadiums. I will drink the tears of the competitive community. I have no interest in these boring and generic stages. As always, we are cutting the N64 stage. I don't mind Saffron City as a concept, but I think we can do better for Kanto. And, with a heavy heart, I must remove one of my beloved Kalos stages. We will be keeping the iconic Prism Tower and removing Kalos Pokemon League in the interest of letting Unova Pokemon League stand out more. Also, Kalos Pokemon League is a glorified Pokemon Stadium 3, and while it is way cooler aesthetically, I can't let it pass on that alone. With 4 stage slots opened up, we now have the task of creating new stages based off of the Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, and Alola regions. With so much room to breathe, I thought I'd even give myself an extra challenge here. Through our 7-stage selection, let's try to chronicle a full Pokemon journey from the early game all the way to the end. First up, our early game stage is set in Alola with Melee Island, a picturesque paradise with the fight primarily taking place on the shore in front of Kukui's lab. You can see Iki Town in the distance where festivities are taking place, but your immediate surroundings are wild water Pokemon swimming and playing along the shoreline. This island in its totality covers what in other Pokemon games would be your first 2 badges. So we transition to Hoenn for the next leg of your journey on Mount Chimney, a location explored between your 3rd and 4th badges. Starting off near the base of the mountain amidst the falling ashes, you ride a cable car up to the top where you come face to face with the molten lava threatening to erupt at any moment. Fire Pokemon run amok as the rumbling eruption reveals none other than Groudon, threatening to interrupt your battle. Your only hope is to make your way back down towards Lava Ridge Town, or hope Rayquaza might appear to calm him down. Continuing on our journey, we arrive at the familiar Prism Tower of Kalos. Our 5th gym challenge awaits us as we admire the beautiful city alongside a smattering of electric and flying Pokemon, including the legendary Yveltal and Zapdos. Next we arrive in Kanto. With gyms 5 and 6 defeated, the only thing stopping us from proceeding onward is that accursed Surf HM, hidden away in the Safari Zone. A wild area filled with tall grass and taller trees as rare Pokemon of all kinds stalk us as if for prey, but the friendly grass and bug Pokemon are sure to make themselves known. Nowhere else have you felt more in tune with the true Pokemon experience, roughing it in the directionless wilderness, surrounded by nothing but these intriguing creatures and nature's cover. You emerge from there ready to take on the world, but be careful what you wish for. Between your 7th and 8th gym, you must brave Sinnoh's Mount Coronet and arrive at the Spear Pillar to challenge the lords of time and space in an otherworldly arena. But your battles with legendary dragons don't end there, as you approach En's Castle in Unova for your championship showdown. As the dust settles, your victory assured and the credits ready to roll, something still calls to you. One more mountain to climb, one more challenge to face. Any foolish notions of gym badges, evil teams, Elite Fours, and champions dissipate as you scale Johto's Mount Silver. It's bitterly cold as snow pelts you from every direction. A select few icy Pokemon know how to survive in this frigid climate, the legendary Suicune among them. Only those truly willing to push themselves to their limit have battled on this humble peak, and here you are, ready to face the next person who dares disturb your training. So, with the dramatics out of the way, let me clarify a couple things. En's Castle is still very much Unova Pokemon League. I just thought En's Castle would make for a much more distinct and memorable name. I tried to maintain a certain level of Pokemon type diversity across these locales in an effort to carry over one of the things Pokemon Stadium 2 and Kalos Pokemon League did very well, which was showcasing those types and including those fun background cameos. I tried to focus this stage selection into more natural locations, as opposed to the more constructed structures that have persisted across Pokemon stages of the past. That's very much a personal preference thing, but that little tangent I went on in the Safari Zone portion is very much how I feel Pokemon should be represented. The nature is much more interesting to me than the structures, which is why I ended up passing on things like the Pokemon Tower or Bell Tower. I was really tempted to include Fortree City for Hoenn, but I think an active volcano is gonna be more fun than a jungle setting when we still have Donkey Kong stages around. And I know, I included 2 stages that start with Mount when I really don't want stage names to overlap, but they are so distinct in every other aspect, basically being complete opposites, that I'm fine with it. Mount Silver is a must for me. It should absolutely be the Pokemon Trainer's main stage, and generally, Ultimate's really lacking snowy and icy stages. Ice climbers can only carry us so far. So yeah, that's how I would do the Pokemon stages in Smash Ultimate. Is it a lot to ask for 4 brand new stages? Yes. In a perfect world, we would have gotten some of this stuff in Melee or Brawl instead of 2 Pokemon stadiums. But the setup of 7 stage slots was a little too perfect for me to pass up. These should be the Pokemon stages in Smash, and you can fight me on that. Just not on Pokefloats. Alright, now we're on to Kirby with 6 stages. If Mario was one half of my reason for this video, and Pokemon was the other half, Kirby's like, I don't know, a solid 10% of the reason. Knock the other 2 down to 45%. Like Zelda, Kirby is one of the original 10 to have all of their stages returned for Ultimate. With this in mind, it becomes pretty clear that throughout all of Smash's history, it has only been interested in representing a very specific set of Kirby games. These are Kirby's Dream Land, Kirby's Adventure, and Kirby Superstar, the 3 Sakurai-led games. I highly doubt that's a coincidence. I don't mean to frame this as some kind of conspiracy against Sakurai, though I am very much still salty that Bandana Waddle Dee didn't make the roster, which could very well be because Sakurai doesn't like new Kirby stuff. It's fine, he's made some stellar games, he's allowed to be petty, I will just be petty right back. We need some fresher Kirby stuff in this stage roster. First, obviously, Dreamland needs to go. Let no N64 stage go uncut. Green Greens does its job way better anyway. Secondly, I think both Smash 4 stages are totally unnecessary. Neither of them are fun to play on, and I know I haven't been kind to these retro throwback stages, but the puke green of Dreamland GB especially needs to go. With that done, each of Sakurai's Kirby games still gets 1 stage to represent them, and now we can fill in these slots with newer Kirby stuff. I will be fully cutting one of these slots just to be fair. 6 stages is kind of a lot for a franchise like Kirby. It's not the juggernaut that Mario, Zelda, or Pokemon are, and it could use a little humbling. So, with 2 stage slots available, my first new stage pitch is the Dream Stock from Kirby Triple Deluxe. I know Smash is allergic to vertically traveling stages now, so I imagine this working more like Prism Tower or New Donk City Hall, where you still progress upwards, but it's through a platform that conveniently carries you. I just think this set piece is so cute and memorable and would work so well in capturing that Kirby vibe while still being distinct. Obviously, the stage could drop you off on little areas themed to Triple Deluxe stages, but the focus should always be on the Dream Stock itself. Once you reach the top, there could be some climactic event with Queen Sectonia, and it'll be really flashy and cool. My second Kirby stage pitch is none other than Magolor's ship, the Lore Starcutter from Kirby's Return to Dreamland. This is basically a replacement for Rainbow Cruise, which we cut earlier. The ship will sail through the skies as you fight on it, periodically letting you hop off to explore locales from Return to Dreamland, perhaps even including an encounter with Landia. Another idea I had for this was Mirror World from Kirby and the Amazing Mirror. A larger, more labyrinthian level to replace the Great Cave Offensive that hopefully wouldn't be as bogged down by that stage's ceilings, since the Mirror World is a much more cloudy and puffy locale that would lend itself to an open design. I am not married to either of these ideas, since both are effectively just replacements for stages I've cut. I would love to hear thoughts from other Kirby enthusiasts in the comments, but I think you all get the picture. We need better, modern Kirby representation in Smash Ultimate stage selection, and these are a couple ideas that could realize that goal. As an overview, my Kirby stages would be Green Greens, Fountain of Dreams, Howlbird, Dreamstock, and either Mirror World or Lore Starcutter. With that, we've covered all of the biggest properties in Smash Ultimate. We jumped down from 6 stages with Kirby to 4 stages with a whole bunch of different series, namely Donkey Kong, Metroid, Yoshi, Earthbound, Fire Emblem, and Super Smash Bros. Itself. Let's start with the easy one. Super Smash Bros. Should not have 4 stages. Small Battlefield and Big Battlefield should just be alternate versions of Battlefield, not separate entries on the goddamn stage roster. Hell, it's not like Battlefield is getting a lot of mileage out of the Omega and Battlefield form feature, just make it so that it changes to Small and Big Battlefield with those options instead. Boom, done, 2 easy cuts, moving on. Fire Emblem is the first series we've come across to not originate from Smash 64. It only managed to get its stage count as high as it did through the help of Smash Ultimate's DLC. That said, I'm actually totally fine with Fire Emblem stages. I like that we have a combination of iconic locations from specific games, as well as general Fire Emblem concept stages that encompass more of an idea than anything specific. That's fun! My only real critique is that Arena Ferox and Colosseum are both battle arenas with changing platform configurations, which is an odd bit of overlap there. So while I don't think it's really necessary, I wouldn't mind replacing Colosseum with a new stage. My first instinct for a new Fire Emblem stage is actually Acania, or Arcania, Marth's homeland that was apparently going to be a stage in Melee but never got finished. Now just a remnant hidden in the game's code. I think it'd be fun to revive that old stage idea. So yeah, if we are replacing Colosseum with anything, I'd like to see Arcania come to fruition. But overall, Fire Emblem stages are fine by me. Earthbound should be another quick one. While I do like all of its stages, this is the last of the original 10 to not have received any cuts for Ultimate, and I just don't think that's particularly fair. If we have Onett representing Earthbound, Newport City representing Mother 3, and Magican representing Earthbound Beginnings, I see no reason to keep Foresight around, which is just representing Earthbound again. Next, let's tackle Donkey Kong and Yoshi together. They've been on a fairly similar journey through the Smash series, and have thus both ended up in Ultimate with 4 stages, having lost their Smash 4 representative. Donkey Kong also lost Rumble Falls, but we don't talk about vertical stages. I do think 4 stages is a bit much for both of these guys, so we're obviously fully cutting the N64 stages. I also think we can spice up the remaining selection a bit. For Yoshi, we can't have 2 Yoshi's Islands, so I'm inclined to cut the one from Melee that's just based on Super Mario World for some reason. Ideally, I'd love to replace it with good old Woolly World from Smash 4. The stage would likely need some reworking to properly accommodate 8-player Smash, but I think the yarn aesthetic paired with the crayon of Yoshi's Island and craft work of Yoshi's Story works too well. Donkey Kong I'm much more undecided on. My instinct is to drop 75 meters because it's a bad stage, but I've been cutting a lot of these retro throwback stages and I'm starting to become self-conscious about it. Not to mention how Congo Falls and Jungle Japes absolutely have some overlap in theming. But it's hard to not have that with Donkey Kong, he's in jungles all the time. Additionally, while I absolutely do want to include a more modern Donkey Kong stage like Smash 4's Jungle Hijinks, that stage specifically is almost certainly not on the table since the background gimmick won't work with 8 players. So perhaps a new stage based on a Tropical Freeze level is in order. My instinct is Shipwreck Shore, the second level, mainly just so we can get a pirate ship in there for poor King K. Rool to call his own. But the specific level doesn't really matter a whole lot to me. So I think tentatively, my Donkey Kong stage list is Congo Falls, Jungle Japes, and Shipwreck Shore, but I could very easily be convinced to slot 75 meters back in, or to switch Shipwreck Shore for something else entirely. I guess last is Metroid, which is kind of in a weird spot. If I'm honest with myself, I don't think Metroid necessarily deserves 4 stages, but it does have 4 fighters in the game, and who am I to rob the Metroid cast of their ability to each call one stage their own? Besides, we can't have Fire Emblem being the only franchise with 4 stages and thus ranking above most of the original 10. That would make Smash fans very upset. So Metroid can have 4 stages. But I don't think we can keep Brintstar Depths, which is a shame because I think this stage is so funny and I love having Big Old Kraid in the background, but the name overlaps with Brintstar and it's a nightmare to actually try and play on, so we'll need a replacement. We could rework the cut Metroid stage concepts, namely Planet Zebes from Smash 64, never mind, or Pyrosphere from Smash 4. Never mind again. Thankfully, I have the perfect concept for a brand new Metroid stage. You see, Metroid 1 and Super Metroid both take place on Planet Zebes, which is where Brintstar and Norfair are, so those 2 games are totally covered. But what about the other 2 main Metroid games that existed before Ultimate released? Metroid 2 and Fusion. Well, Metroid 2 takes place on the planet SR388, and Metroid Fusion includes a sector that is designed to imitate the SR388 ecosystem. So, basing a stage off of SR388, perhaps with some visual inspiration taken from Fusion or the freshly released Metroid 2 remake on 3DS, would be perfect. This planet is also the homeworld of the entire Metroid species, so I think it's earned its spot as an iconic Metroid location worthy of some stage representation. Alright, we're really zooming now, onto the 3 stagers. We've got Star Fox, F-Zero, Kid Icarus, and Animal Crossing. I don't know how Star Fox has managed 3 characters and 3 stages, even after 2 cuts in Sector Z and Orbital Gate Assault. That said, I don't want any of these guys to lose their designated stage, so we'll just leave the Star Fox roster as is, unless any Star Fox fans in the comments really want any of these replaced with something else. Similarly, I don't know how F-Zero has managed 3 stages. I guess that's the Smash 64 legacy for you. I don't really see a good reason to kick F-Zero while it's down, and the 3 stages all represent different games, so why not leave them all in? My only change would be to simplify the name of Mute City SNES to just Mute City. I assume they changed it for Ultimate because they might have planned to bring back Mute City from Melee, but that never came to fruition, it now being the only cut F-Zero stage. But that's done. We only have one Mute City now, so just call it Mute City. Perhaps it's a bit contradictory of me to be so kind to Star Fox and F-Zero when every single one of their stages is so thematically similar. It's always a spaceship for Star Fox and a racetrack for F-Zero, but it's not like those series have a lot of other options. The stages still manage to feel fairly unique despite the surface level similarities, and I think there's an extent to which I do respect that Smash 64 seniority. It'd feel wrong to knock either of them down to 2 stages. I will not grant Kid Icarus that same luxury. It definitely does not deserve 3 stages, and thankfully there's an easy cut here with Palutena's Temple. It's way too big and overlaps aesthetically with Skyworld. Not to mention how my Mirror World concept for Kirby could probably do the same shtick better. I refuse to cut Reset Bomb Forest, that's got my girl Viridi in it. Just move the Palutena's guidances to Skyworld and we're all good. That leaves us with Animal Crossing. While I do think Animal Crossing totally deserves 3 stages, having both Smashville and Town and City feels completely pointless. Between the two, I'd definitely cut Smashville since it's the simpler stage, but what to replace it with? Town and City is so all-encompassing as far as Animal Crossing locales go that it's hard to come up with something else. Well, remember how we cut Spirit Train? Say hello to its spiritual successor, Train to Town. Today I learned that the Animal Crossing train doesn't have an official name. I think this would be very cute as a stage representing the very first moments of the original Animal Crossing. Of course, you're fighting on a moving train, so you can still jump off and ram into the front for major damage, but it's a much more chill ride than Spirit Train. Let's keep this thing rolling with the 2-stagers: Wario, Sonic the Hedgehog, Pikmin, Xenoblade Chronicles, and Final Fantasy. While we certainly aren't cutting anything here, I think everything I just listed deserves having 2 stages for one reason or another. Final Fantasy is definitely the edge case there, and I would have much preferred getting other Final Fantasy games represented over another FF7 locale, but this was brought about by Ultimate's DLC, which I sort of treat as its own separate beast, so I won't challenge it. Kefka's Tower would have been sick though, just saying. Similarly, I have no qualms with the Xenoblade Chronicles stages. 2 solid representations of the 2 major games that got fighters sounds good to me. Wario and Pikmin are both fine, but definitely have room for improvement. I'm fine with Wario primarily representing the WarioWare series in Smash, and I like the gimmicky wackiness of WarioWare Inc. That said, Gamer feels like some wasted potential. I'm not well versed in Wario stuff, but I assume there are plenty of cool concepts for a Wario Land stage out there that would have served to better round out the Wario representation in Smash fairly easily. So yeah, I'd cut Gamer for Wario Land. Pikmin has a slightly different issue where Distant Planet and Garden of Hope are just far too aesthetically similar. Even just looking at the first 2 games, there are plenty of more distinct locales we can use to better represent Pikmin. I want to keep the Garden of Hope because I think it's more fun to have a specifically named location for a stage rather than just the entire Distant Planet, so we'll replace that with the Forest Navel from the first Pikmin. This is a darker cave setting that would feel very distinct from the Garden of Hope while still being very recognizably Pikmin. This setup could also be used to reference the caves from Pikmin 2 as a little double whammy. A perfect stage to pair with the more standard Garden of Hope. And then there was Sonic the Hedgehog. What the hell is Windy Hill Zone doing here? I understand Lost World was the new Sonic game at the time, but even then, I think we could all tell it would have no staying power, and choosing a stage that is so aesthetically similar to Green Hill Zone is just really dumb. Of course, these 2 stages were never meant to be present on the same roster, but this is what Ultimate has left us with. To me, Green Hill Zone on its own always felt a little odd as the Sonic stage, only because nowadays there's such a clear distinction between classic Sonic and modern Sonic. Since modern Sonic is the one in Smash, it's odd that there was a time where he was solely represented by a very classic Sonic stage. This is just an odd little observation. I'm not at all suggesting to cut Green Hill Zone, although when discussing this video topic with some friends of mine, those being Chris and Sion from the Sonic Song Ranking, which is an awesome video and you should all watch it, Chris came up with the idea of expanding the Green Hill Zone stage into a full South Island stage including elements from all sorts of different classic Sonic levels. A bold idea, but I'm certainly not against it. As for the new modern Sonic stage to replace the derivative Windy Hill Zone, The main idea I came up with was Station Square from Sonic Adventure. It could start off as the normal, undamaged city, and over the course of the battle, perfect chaos can emerge and destroy everything, changing the stage layout. Meanwhile, Scion pitched Eggman Land, Dr. Eggman's city and theme park from Sonic Unleashed. Admittedly, I initially thought he was talking about the amusement park from Sonic Colors, which just goes to show how little I still know about Sonic. If we ever got another Sonic character, Dr. Eggman would absolutely be my pick, with Shadow as an Echo Fighter. If that happened, I think Eggman Land or Tropical Resort would be a perfect fit. I'm still partial to my Station Square idea, so that's what I'll officially state, but get in the comments and tell us which of our ideas is cooler. And with that, we've just about made it to the end of our journey. All that's left are the properties with only one stage, and for the most part, I think they're all represented perfectly fine. My only notable comments are that Flat Zone X is cool and totally warrants the cutting of Flat Zones 1 and 2. Icicle Mountain is a sad cut, but I understand it. Summit works totally fine for the ice climbers. And Pac-Land blows! The stage should absolutely be a reworked Pac-Maze from Smash for 3DS instead. I know that the stage, as designed in Smash for 3DS, only works with the several different screens because the ghost will only turn blue for the player who collected a power pellet, but just change it so it'll work on a single screen. I think that just about covers everything, so what was the final tally of stages we managed to cut? Exactly 20 stages! This reduces Smash Ultimate's base game stage count from 103 to 84. Remember, we cut Small Battlefield and that was free DLC. With DLC, we're back up to 95, which is definitely more stages than I had hoped to leave in, but still takes out about 2 whole rows of this horrendously crowded stage selection. That's certainly an improvement. More importantly, in return for those 20 stages worth of dev time, our version of Ultimate includes about 17 more brand new stages, putting it in a much more comparable position to the previous Smash entries. It's still significantly less new stages than the other Smash games provided, but that's a concession we have to deal with since so many old stages were brought back here. There were also some negligible entries in there like Fire Emblem, Donkey Kong, Wario, and Monster Hunter. 17's a generous number. I also think we've done an excellent job diversifying the stage selection to the point where every stage feels distinct, memorable, and hopefully fun. And I hope you all had fun watching! A video diving deeper into some of Smash Ultimate's representation choices has been buzzing in my head for a while now. It was an old suggestion from a commenter that I can't actually find now, that's embarrassing. Ideally, I would have done a much more all-encompassing thing, talking about fighters, stages, items, assist trophies, spirits, music, and all that jazz. But considering how the fighter conversation has been done to death and how much I yapped just about the stages, I think it would actually kill me to do a huge video like that. Maybe in the future we'll tackle those topics on their own, but for now, I hope this scratched the Smash Ultimate representation itch. Like, comment, subscribe, or none of the above, I'm not your dad. See y'all next time for the holidays.